listening to the Coffee Podcast, Sips with Celebs, with WWE superstar Cesaro. When I say the word wrestling, what first comes to your mind? It's not coffee, is it? I didn't think so. Unless, of course, you wrestled your friend or partner this morning over the last drop of coffee, of course. In this episode, we sit and sip with WWE superstar Cesaro. That's World Wrestling Entertainment for those unfamiliar. This episode will require your participation, so keep an ear out for that. By the way, part of being a professional wrestler involves a grand ring entrance. I don't have anything too grand, but I'll introduce this conversation with a match bell, because why not? I feel it's appropriate. I paid a little bit of attention to your Instagram, and it looks like you like puns. Like puns are your thing.
I do.
Do you have one ready for us? It just doesn't feel right if we don't open up.
Okay,
that
so
one.
I'll just open with the last one I saw, and it's kind of coffee related because I actually went to a new coffee place that just opened up here. It's called Coffee Karma.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't have a menu. You just get what you deserve.
All right. Yes. Okay, I feel now that we've done this properly. It appears you've had a great interest in coffee for a while. Where does that coffee story begin?
Well, so when I think back of the first time I tasted coffee, it was probably when I was a kid, and a little kid, and that just sounds horrible, but you know when you're like mom is having coffee and it just smells really good and you immediately want some too, and then it's like, no, you cannot have coffee because you're too small. So my mom would steam milk and just have a hot milk and put a little bit of drops of coffee in there, so I'll have a little bit of the taste. So I do remember that. But then I didn't drink coffee till I was 27 years old.
Okay.
And I have a bunch of friends that were 27 as well when they started drinking coffee on a regular basis. So we kind of joke around that 27 is the age where you start really appreciating coffee.
Yeah. It's the age of coffee accountability. You need to start drinking at 27.
Yes.
Right? So what do you think the reason was behind that? Why did you wait that long?
It's weird because when I moved to the United States, in Europe, you kind of drink coffee as like a dessert, you have like an espresso after your meal or something as a palate cleanser and stuff like that. And I never really did that because I didn't really enjoy it when I was younger. And then when I came to the States, the coffee culture over here is completely different, It's more just kind of like, you get that the brewed coffee at the gas station in the glass pot, that kind of stuff. And that to me, that wasn't very appealing either until it was actually in Japan and I was really tired and I just needed a pick-me-up and I didn't have any energy drink or anything. So I started drinking coffee there and it was like Insta coffee. And then it was like the the Nespresso Insta coffee thing. And I was like, I'll just put as many as I can in there. Not realize you get that just fortifies the taste, not necessarily the caffeine. Yeah. But in Japan, they have those vending machines and they have little cans of coffee, and not just cold, but they have hot vending machines where you can get hot coffee too.
I've heard this.
And every different coffee that you can imagine, coffee with milk, with cream, black, just everything. So it kind of started there, and then because I wrestle, I kind of look at my appearance and then want to diet, and then I was like, okay, but when I travel, I would still like to experience the local specialties or a little bit of the culture, and I felt that coffee was the perfect way to do so because I can try whatever coffee I want. Doesn't really conflict with my diet. And then over the years, when I got to travel with WWE, especially, that's when I started opening the Instagram because it was just so cool to see the world in a different light because, you kind of... We only see airports, arenas, and hotels is always the joke. But if you go to a coffee spot, you see the town, you see the city, you see how people live. Yeah. And me and my friends just became a thing. And of course, then I started loving coffee and the small batch coffee roasters started becoming more popular, kind of the third wave of coffee after the Starbucks, in the US and Europe and everywhere. And it was great to see,
Interesting how you mentioned that going to a cafe is kind of getting a taste of the culture, the local culture. And I've always thought that was true, but you put that in such a such a succinct way. I think that's a really important thing that's kind of been missing during COVID, because everything's been closed down and it's a lot harder to get that engagement and that experience now. But hopefully that will return once COVID has kind of subsided more. You open your Instagram account.
Claudio's Cafe on Instagram. It's very little pictures of me. I try to not be in it at all because I want it to be all about the coffee because that's
cool.
To me, it was like I wanted to highlight the coffee shops that I'm going to, and like you said, it's what's kind of missing in those, especially the last year. Just going to a shop, and even if you're just there by yourself, you just sit there, you drink your coffee, and you just enjoy life, and it's just like you feel like the world slows down. To me, I know it's like you drink coffee because you want to have energy, but to me, it's like the world just slows down because you sit down, you have your cup of coffee, you talk with your friends, and it's just a little bit of me time,
No, I can relate to that, and I would agree with you too. And you've already mentioned this. You've done a good deal of world travel, and you've probably visited the cafes of some of our listeners, even who are baristas or shop owners around the world.
We always try to expand to as many as possible. So, for example, Australia is just a hot spot for coffee, and everybody knows that it's insane. We would make a mission to visit as many coffee shops as possible, even if we knew where the good ones were. We would go have breakfast. That's kind of our thing. I would have breakfast and then go to a coffee shop and then just sit for a bit and then go to the next one. And here's the other problem. Because I visited so many, I probably forgot the names of so many coffee shops, but I can visualize it. You know what I mean? I always wish they'd have that function on Instagram where you can look at a map. I think they had that a long time ago where you can look at a map and you see all the pins where you took pictures. So Australia, even I went to airport lounges. It sounds so silly. And in a department store, they had a proper coffee setup and got really good coffee. And I was like, what is happening? I need to move to Australia,
I've thought that on multiple occasions for myself. I hear that. I haven't made it to Australia yet, but I hope to.
Definitely recommend it. And then Melbourne is kind of the hot spot. Sydney is good too, but Melbourne is it's like a stone throw. There's like a stone throw away. There's another coffee shop and another coffee shop. And there was this really cool, I always remember that because, to me also coffee brings people together, right? From all kinds of different walks of life, from different places around the world. And for me, it was really cool. We were in Saudi Arabia and we found this local coffee shop and we Ubered there. And it was we got in 5 minutes before prayer time where everything closes up. And they were so nice once we started talking to them because we were we just wanted to, get a coffee really quick. And they stayed open a tiny bit longer so we can just get the coffee. We talked to them for a bit. And it was just a really cool experience because here's people from completely, a different part of the world. And we all bond over coffee and just having a good time, So it was it was really cool. And there's so many spots, all over Europe, obviously. And, even South Africa, I had the chance. And like I said, I can't remember the names, but if you say a city, I'm pretty sure I know where a good coffee spot is. And it's been really cool to see, especially in the US, that that little, the small town coffee shops just coming out of the woodwork everywhere and people supporting them, even during the COVID times where you can they order the beans from the local coffee shop, and it's freshly roasted and it just tastes so much better.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I like how you drew it back to as well, the idea of supporting your local community and coffee. I think right now that's a really important concept because nobody can really go anywhere. So that idea of, hey, find that coffee shop in town that you like and purchase some beans and see what happens.
Yeah. I mean, definitely, even if it's a lot of the local coffee shops, they still offer takeaway services, and like I said, just if you order a bag or two, that's what I've been doing. I went on sprees. I looked up, I was like, oh, where's this coffee shop? And I just order a little bit from there, so I can have it at home. And it's just, I try to keep the fun going that way, but I definitely miss visiting of different spots.
It appears to me that your drink of choice is a cortado. Am I off?
No, you're dead on. You're dead on.
Okay. I saw the photos. I've been around this for a while and I was like, it's definitely it looks like a cortado, but
Yeah.
Cortados are a bit of a mess actually in the coffee world because there's a different recipe, I feel like almost everywhere you go. And you would probably be a better candidate to observe that since you have gotten them all over the world. What do you think makes a great cortado?
So it comes all down to the beans, right? And then the barista. I can't tell you how many times I've been to a coffee shop and then the coffee didn't taste it different depending on the barista. So
Yeah.
a huge shout out to all the baristas out there because people think it doesn't make a difference. It does. It's like
Oh, yeah.
everything matters. And like I have my home set up and I realized it the hard way. I was like, oh, that tastes like, not so good. I need to get better at this. So
Yeah.
it all comes down to that. And like you said, it's so funny because, it goes from like cortado to flat white to piccolo. They had like different names for different coffee shop. But to me, what I personally prefer is the equal ratio espresso to milk. So it's usually 2 ounces to 2 ounces. But if it's somehow similar, that's fine. But I do like just a straight up shot of espresso as well. I just like it with a little bit of milk because then I can just sit, enjoy, and zip it a little bit.
Yeah.
I had the latte art. The craziest latte art I've ever had was in Japan, and there I actually had a latte, but it came in like almost like a soup bowl. It was such a wide cup, which is a little bit too much milk for my liking. But man, the art was so pretty. I couldn't say no. I was like, oh yeah.
Yeah. No, that's cool. On the cortado front, I actually my clutch move is to steam the milk a lot lower, so a very low temperature, because that equal parts can play kind of rough unless you counter it with the sweetness of the milk. And I find the sweetness is a lot more perceptible when the temperature is lower. So you should try that out at home if you're making them.
Okay, I'll definitely try that.
So speaking of your setup at home, how did you go about? It looks like you have an espresso machine. I couldn't tell from the photos really. It might be a La Marzocco. I wasn't totally sure. But what do you have at home, and how did you go about choosing that gear?
Okay, so first I started with like pretty much nothing because I traveled so much. I just had like a French press, and that was it. And then I got hurt about 6 years ago. I hurt my shoulder, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to invest in a coffee machine, and I got a Breville Barista Express. That was like a game changer because it was like, oh wow. Oh wow, I just went from having nothing or just like a little bit to that, and I was like, this is great. And it's a great, I feel like entry level because it had like the grinder included, so I could still get fresh beans. And then you are 100% correct. Just recently I actually was I got it for Christmas, the La Marzocco Linea Mini, if I pronounced that correctly. I got that and a really nice grinder, and that's when I was going to say, that's where the hats off to all the baristas out there, because a lot of tinkering, let me tell you.
Yeah.
A lot of tinkering. And like I'm sitting there with the stopwatch, trying to make it exact that like, this amount of, these many grams gives me this amount of, like this many grams of liquid and all that. And then like steaming the milk. And you were like, do it on lower temperature. I'm like, oh, I need to get that done too. So
you are totally in it. I mean, I meet people all the time who are like, yeah, I'm the coffee person, here. And I can have a conversation and be like, okay, like you've identified yourself as a coffee person. Yes, you love coffee, but what you're talking about is you are like truly like into it deep.
Yes. Like I was very excited because they were like, "Oh, you're going on the coffee podcast." I'm like, "Okay, sweet. I just hope I know what I'm talking about." And that was another reason why, like, one of my friends was like, "You should make YouTube videos of you going to different coffee shops."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "No, I like the Instagram because it's about the coffee shop, right? And it's just the pictures." And to me, I'm like, I don't know coffee. Like, I know what I like. I can taste it, but I can't like do like a tasting and be like, "Oh, this has notes of whatever." Like, if you tell me the notes, I'll zip it and I'll be like, oh, yeah, that's true. I can kind of, like, so, and I can tell you what I like, but I'm not an expert. I was like, I would just want to make it about the coffee shops. And then, but yeah, I am deep and I just enjoy what it stands for. And like, I'm a big nerd. So nerding out about coffee, it's so much fun. And it's like its own universe, I mean, that better than anybody else, I feel.
Yeah, maybe not better, but yeah, I know it for sure. It's an entire world. And I want to talk about one more thing that I saw on your Instagram. Your latte art is, I mean, pretty impressive. It's hard to teach yourself latte art. It really is without practice. And I noticed over probably the last 20 photos of your latte art, there's been a significant improvement. So what happened? What did something just like trigger in your mind? Do you think it was the new machine?
It was the new machine.
Okay.
So I think what happened is, I also use oat milk primarily because I discovered oat milk and I see like, so here's the thing that comes back. I discovered oat milk on a coffee shop in Germany where it was like one of those like, hey, try this milk substitute, oat milk, you know, and it was like, they even give you a discount. And I'm like, oh, I'll just pay regular price. I just want to try it. Like, you know, like give me one of each and I want to taste difference. And it
side by side.
Yeah. And it tastes really creamy and I really liked it. So I used oat milk and then just obviously because the La Marzocco has a completely different, it's a professional machine, right? So the steam is just so different. And not that I know what I'm doing because I still don't, but I must steam it differently now a little bit. And I steam it quicker. So, and I use this lower amount of milk. So it's kind of working. But again, like you said, like if you teach yourself, it's hit or miss. And I take so many pictures and I only post obviously the ones that I feel like kind of make it because but it definitely did make a difference. And I do appreciate because people like comment and they give me little tips and I do read that. And I think it's really cool because I mean, you know, it's such a tight knit community. And if somebody like wants to learn and get better, like there's so many people out there that have good, helpful tips. And I really appreciate that. And I do try them all. Sometimes I fail horribly, but that's also fun. They just have like a blob of foam in your coffee.
Yeah. Yeah, we've all done it. Anybody who's learned latte art has thrown some really ugly things into a cup. There's no doubt about it. I mean, there's a extra challenge, honestly, when you do alternative milk. It's a lot harder, in my opinion. So I'm impressed.
Thank you.
I'm impressed with what I'm seeing.
I realize that. And that's the other thing of like, I can't wait till, you know, everything opens up so I can just go to a coffee shop and be like, so how'd you do that?
Yeah, no, it's definitely more of a challenge. Well, I want to segue. This is the coffee podcast, but maybe some of my listeners aren't familiar with the wrestling world. I know I have a little bit of familiarity, but not a ton. So let's dive into that a little bit. And we'll start with a thought experiment. So for a moment, picture the time before you really got into coffee. So, you know, back when you didn't understand, like there's a whole world of it, right? Now switch to the topic of wrestling. How would you describe being a WWE superstar to listeners who have never seen or experienced professional wrestling?
I would say it's like the Starbucks of professional wrestling. Or okay, I'll do it one better. It's like the Marzocco of professional wrestling, where it's like the top of the line. But there is like a ton of other things out there. If you dive deeper into it, you know, I came up through the independents over in Europe and then here. So there's like probably a local wrestling company in your city, but WWE is like the number one global recognized wrestling company. And we have our big show WrestleMania, which I'm pretty sure even people who don't really know wrestling, they've heard of WrestleMania before. We have our big show WrestleMania April 10th and 11th in Tampa Bay this year. So that'll be available. You can watch it on Peacock, which is the new network. So
very cool. I guess for me, so there's things in coffee you don't really understand until you do it.
Yes.
Until you try it yourself. What are things like that in wrestling?
I always tell people that like you have to, which is really hard to do now, but I always tell people you have to come to a live show. Like when we do like the live shows that come to your town, like because if you watch it on TV, it's this big spectacle, right? And you watch it and it's cool. But if you're there in the arena, it's like completely different because you are part of it. You know, it's the atmosphere, it's the people around you. It's kind of if you drink, you know, like your coffee at home by yourself in the morning, or you drink it with your friends in a coffee shop, and it becomes like it's like a social experience. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And to me, like that's always one of the coolest part when you look out and you see like here's the dad with the mom, you know, and their kids, and maybe even, you know, their grandfather. And it's just like, it's this whole family that can come and watch us. And just like, to people who don't know what wrestling is, I always say it's like a comic book come to life, but you can go and see it live.
Cool. What would you consider to be one of the things that people misunderstand about being a WWE superstar the most?
I think what people misunderstand the most is they think, oh, okay, you just work, once a week, and that's on television, and that's why you do it. And like, there's a whole lot more that goes into it.
Yeah.
We used to be on the road close to 300 days a week.
Oh,
A
man.
year. A week would be quite a lot. But so like we would be on the road every week because TV would be taped in a different city every week, and then there's 2 to 3 live events before that. And then there's tours in different countries, different continents all the time. So, it's just like it's a full-time job and you have to love it. So I think people don't understand maybe usually how many times I had. I think the year that I had the most matches I had like close to 220 matches in 1 year.
What?
So
220?
Yes. That's like 220. That's just matches. That's not even like days on the road or anything. That
is insane.
So it's like an insane amount because you may see 40 or 50 of my matches on television, and the rest would have been like
oh man.
So
yeah,
it's kind of like that's what people don't see. So it's kind of like that's what shocks people when they find out.
Yeah, you shocked me just now.
So as you see, I have a lot of time to go to different coffee shops. We have that many shows.
Wow. And I'm sure too, the friends that you're traveling with, you'll probably have really deep relationships. I would imagine, right? Because you spend all that time together.
So like that was the thing too about like last year. It's I've spent over the last 8 years, like you spend 300 days away from home, and you almost spend more times with your family on the road, as we call it, right? So like my friends that I traveled with and go to coffee shops with, like those are like really good friends because we have been through ups and downs. And if something happens in your life, like if you're around each other for 5 days, 4 days a week, like you talk about it, So that's like your family. And then it's kind of last year that just kind of gets not ripped apart, but it's just on a different level, right? You talk maybe on the phone more, and you can't go to coffee shops. But I think it's very important to keep those relationships alive and to keep talking to people. And I think that's what maybe the challenge has been for a lot of people last year. But hopefully we can all get together and have a coffee soon.
Yeah, I like that perspective. This might sound like a strange question. Have you found any similarities between being a WWE superstar and coffee? Like your experience with coffee?
Yeah, I mean it's like we talked about latte art and coffee and what goes into it, and the similarity is just like practice makes perfect, right? And it's just like the more you do it, the better you get, and it's all in the details. The longer you deal with coffee, the more you start to appreciate the little things, the more you understand. There's way more ingredient. Like it's the milk and the coffee and the beans. Okay, that makes sense, right? And then you're like, the grinder and the machine, and then the temperature of the milk. So it just keeps going on. And like, as a superstar, it's like first you think like, oh, okay, this will be great, and then like you start to realize, oh, there's the camera angle, and there's the lighting, and there's the entrance, and if I come out this way, so like a little thing that this is going to be hopefully fun for the listeners, right? If you stand when you do like interviews and you stand 10 inches ahead of closer to the camera than the other person, you look so much bigger on television. So like, so there's just like these little details that you learn that the camera people tell you. They're always like, okay, step a little bit more forward so you look bigger than the person who's interviewing you, just by standing a little bit closer to the camera. So it's like there's just so many things that you learn. You know what I mean? And like that just goes on, and just like it's kind of, there may be an end goal, or you think like, oh, once I make it there, like that's my goal. But like, no, it's the journey. And I feel like it's the same with coffee. It's the journey that you need to enjoy, because you'll never you never get there. Kind of, it's the process.
Yeah, I really like how you explain that and you put that, and I'm experiencing that connection, and I'm able to understand more of where you're coming from because you connected it to something straight, simple in comparison, in my opinion, to latte art. So that's really cool. Yeah. I want to have some fun next. I hope this isn't too corny.
No, I love corny.
Okay. Oh, what am I talking about?
Exactly right.
You're the pun guy.
Yeah. Okay. So ring names are a thing in wrestling.
Yes.
Yours being Cesaro.
Yes.
How did you come to that name?
So my real name is Claudio Castagnoli, which is quite the Italian name, even though I'm from Switzerland. So I sent in a bunch of names to WWE when I first started, because they kind of help you pick your ring name, and I used to be Antonio Cesaro, and then that just got cut short to Cesaro, kind of
Got
like
it, okay.
Cher or Prince. But so that's another funny part, that a lot of my friends still call me Tony, which is short for Antonio, obviously. So everybody has also a million nicknames. So because
what are some of yours?
well, so for example, there's still people that call me Tony. There's some people that call me Claudio. There's people call me Cesaro. And then there's trying to think of some other nicknames. Swiss is another nickname. Some of the guys I play Uno every week. We have a WWE gaming YouTube channel called Up Up Down Down, where we play like Uno every week, or we play other stuff. Which is actually, that's been something that we started during the pandemic. Because it was like, okay, how can we, because we used to just like tape playing video games at the arenas, but now we can't really do it anymore. So we started playing Uno over Zoom, and people enjoy it a lot, because we just go ham. I mean, when you play Uno, it gets a little bit competitive. I'm sure you know.
In my house, it gets very competitive.
Yes, we also played Monopoly, if you can imagine how that ended. And like they call me Espresso as well. So just like a lot of nicknames. Yeah.
Well, I want to do something very unique on this episode. I want to let's find what your coffee ring name might be.
Okay.
You said espresso, but that's too straightforward.
Yes, my coffee nickname.
Yeah, we might have to ideate a little bit. So how can we give you a coffee ring name? Like something where the coffee world can be like, yeah, that's Cesaro, but like our ring name for Cesaro is,
Well, I feel like that's a question to all your listeners, right? I mean, okay, so maybe on Instagram or Twitter they can just send it to you, and then we all look at it.
We might have to do this,
right?
Yeah, I think we can't do it on the spot.
Yeah, I think you have to think about it.
Yeah, let's not force that. But let's make this an Instagram.
So
thing.
Here's another thing, and again, like diving deeper into it, there is isn't there something with like Swiss water roasted beans or something like that?
Yeah, Swiss water decaf.
There we go, Swiss water decaf, right? I was like, see, this is how deep, because I was like, me and my friend always jokes. We were like, you don't drink decaf, right? Like that's the one thing. He's like, that's the one no. And I was like, well, but Swiss water, because I'm from Switzerland. Yeah, that's the only thing I would try. So.
Yeah, and it's actually really good. I've had it. There's good decaf, believe it or not. There's specialty decaf out there.
Yeah.
And Swiss Water actually is one of those companies that does that.
Okay.
Really well. Yeah.
I gotta try it.
Well, cool.
I gotta try it.
Well, see, I was trying to really get myself a coffee ring name out of this, but I guess I'm gonna have to wait too. Maybe I'll just wait that one out. I'll see if our listeners can provide a coffee ring name for you.
I'm pretty sure they can, 100%.
But I've also got to get one. That's now on my bucket list.
Yeah, 100%.
So, my next question in the fun category is when a barista asks you your name, so maybe this is pre-COVID mainly, but when they ask you your name, what do you write?
Tony.
What do you put on the cup?
Tony.
You put
Tony.
Tony.
Yes, I put Tony on it, which is
awesome.
which is fun, because so I'm Tony, and my friend always does Bob, and it's fun because that's not our names at all. But I always feel like if I would say Claudio or something, like it would probably be another fun thing on the Instagram to just have like how people would spell it. But Tony is my cup name. What is yours?
Cool. What's funny is my name for most of my life was Ryan. And then I changed it to my grandfather's name, which was my middle name, Jesse, in college. But I used to, before I worked in coffee shops, I would say like a long name and just see what they put on the cup.
See, but that's brilliant too.
And it's kind of mean though. Like now that I've worked in coffee, I'm like, why did I do that to people? Oh no! I hope I don't lose any listeners over that. I've changed.
That's so true. But that's like when you yell at the drive-through because you think you have to yell, and then like you immediately realize like, oh, they're wearing headphones. I'm just sorry, everybody.
Yeah, right. So my last fun category question is: you're in a video game, right?
Yes.
Like somebody has written some code, and they put you in a video game. My questions are: Do you ever play it and play yourself? Because I just can't imagine what that would be like.
It's like insane. Like, so like to me, I started wrestling because I just loved it. You know, as a kid, it was kind of like,
Yeah.
oh, this is fun. This is entertainment and sport and interactive with the people and everything. And then I just kind of worked my way up and became like WWE superstar. And so like that, to me, the goal was never to be famous or anything like that, or like I want to be in a video game one day. I'm like, and then like I was in a video game. I'm like, holy crap, this is so weird. and like, and then I actually, because like, so before I got to WWE, I did like motion capture for WWE games. So I had to be like other
okay.
superstars or whatever. And then I did some motion capture as myself, for myself. And then that was even weirder because now when you play it, like it exactly moves like me too. So like I was watching that,
Oh,
and
that's
I'm like,
so crazy.
this is so weird. And I actually caught myself. So like on somebody sent me like on Twitter, it was like an entrance or something, right? And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember, where was that? And it was like in the video game because they became so realistic. You know what I mean? So like
what?
when you just like glance on it, it was like, it was crazy. But to answer your question, every time I get the chance to play the game, like because like usually when they come out, they have like a setup backstage or something, and we can all play it. I always have to play as myself and just like see what I do and how I look, and you know, like the good stuff.
Yeah.
But it's like it's completely surreal. Like to me, I'm like,
Yeah.
this is weird and cool, but yeah.
Yeah, it's got to feel pretty meta. I can't imagine. I'm glad you answered that for me. Okay, so we've had some fun. I want to ask some more serious questions. There's some intense stuff happening, and there has been for many years actually in coffee. A lot of these conversations are stirring these days. Well, before we jump into the coffee specific stuff, I first want to ask you something that you said in an interview. You said something to the effect of you try and do everything with a level of professionalism. What do you mean when you said that?
I think like that's just my approach to everything. Like I would like to do everything well. So like if I talk about something, I would like to at least kind of know what I'm talking about.
How does that translate into, you know, maybe how you do wrestling or how you do coffee?
I would like to treat everything with respect, right? So like professional. So like to me, like when I wrestling, like I treat it with the respect, and I would like to put in the work that it needs, you know, be that working out, getting better, doing tape study, all that kind of stuff. And I feel like with coffee, it's similar as to, like I said, like I didn't want to do this, like, oh, here's me trying coffee, and I tell you like, oh, this coffee doesn't taste good or whatever, because you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it was like I went to coffee spots and like the coffee wasn't, I didn't like it. But then like, who am I to be like, oh, this coffee spot is not good, don't go. Like, you know, because like people will probably look at it and then not go there. And I'm like, no, that's not what I want. I just like,
I see what you're
I
saying.
would like to share,
Yeah.
like, I'm not an expert. I don't have the palate to tell you, you know, what it is. So, but I can tell you that this is something fun and you should enjoy it, you know? So like I would, that's kind of my approach to it.
I see. Yeah. I'm hearing a lot of the theme there of respect. So professionalism has a heavy dose of respect involved, respect for others, and also the self-respect of if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it well.
Yes. When I go to a coffee shop, it's like the most important thing is the barista, right? Because same machine, same coffee, same everything, two different baristas, two different coffees, you know? And you can tell who put in the work and who wants to be a better barista. I respect that, you know, like that's a professionalism that I respect, especially if you have ever tried to make a coffee yourself. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, I do. And I appreciate you associating baristas with professionals, because a lot of baristas experience this concept from consumers that what they're doing isn't that hard. So I appreciate that. I've been a barista. I've lived that life, and so I can speak on behalf of baristas.
But see, so here's the thing with that, right? If you make something difficult look easy, that's kind of the definition of a professional, right? So like if you have a barista that just makes awesome coffee in no time and just pumps it out, like many do, you know, especially during like rush hour, it's insane, you know? And it's just like, oh, this tastes great. And it's like made in 2 seconds and it's awesome and perfect. And it's like, that's true professionalism, you know? And like I said, like I respect that. Like anybody that works really hard at what they do and to get better at it, like that's the professionalism that we talked about that I enjoy.
So the coffee sector was struggling before even COVID happened with things like the coffee price crisis, and especially now due to COVID. As a coffee lover with a platform, how might your role play a part in a better coffee future?
I just liked highlighting the coffee shops, right? And to me, it was like, because that's part of the fun. Like everybody, like everybody can go to the big chains, and it's the same with food, right? You can go to the big chains and eat there, but if you want to experience something special, something that's just made with love, you go to a local spot, and then you make that human connection. You know what I mean? And to me, I just wanted to give that a platform, and that's also like try to bring at least a little bit of attention of, hey, during this time we're all in it together. If you don't have the coffee beans at home, just order it from your local shop. It will help them tremendously. You know what I mean? Like a little bit like that. Obviously, with more coffee shops, there's a bigger demand. There's a bigger, like a price drop or the competitiveness coming in. But with just everything, I feel like it's kind of you get what you pay for. So yes, some coffees may be a little bit more expensive, but if the atmosphere, if everything speaks to you, that may be worth it.
And as a lover of the cafe, what words of encouragement or experiences might you have, say, in your life as becoming a WWE superstar? What experiences might you have to speak to those who are persevering through these hard times as baristas or coffee shop owners or roasters, etc.?
It's interesting because I always found that you always go through like the hard times, but when you make it through them, like while you're in them, they obviously suck, and I mean there's just no bones around it, right? there are some times who are not fun, but when you make it through them, when you look back, I feel like you only look back at the positive things. And I don't know if that's a trick that the mind plays, but I just like to think back at like even times where I know it was hard and I traveled a lot and I was maybe not happy about everything, but it's like, look back and it was like, oh man, yeah, I did that. And look where I'm at now, I feel like that goes for roasters and baristas, coffee shop owners. Like, yeah, it's very difficult now. And, they're all hanging in there and hoping that it's going to be over soon. And, however, but I feel like there's so many coffee shops that trying to make it work, and they do the takeouts and they do the like special, like, social distance stuff. And they're finding ways to engage with the community to make it still work. I have so much respect for that because that just shows how much they love what they do,
Well, thanks for sharing that. No, thanks for dipping into your experiences and your past. It looks like you've had hard times you look back on, and you look at the good things that came through those.
Yeah, and like if you just have, it's all about, to me, when you go to the coffee shop, it's about the conversations, right? And I don't know about you guys, but I'm sure you had that experience before. You have a bad day or something, right? Or something is not going well, and you're at the coffee shop and you have a coffee and just have a short conversation with somebody, and it just kind of lifts your spirit. You know what I mean? Like whatever that is. And you're just like, okay, that's why I do it. Or somebody goes like, you know what? I had a bad day, but I came to your coffee shop and now I feel so much better. And like that gives you like motivation to keep going. And it's the little things like that just make it all worth it.
Yeah, you just brought to mind hard times in my past where I'd go to the local specialty coffee shop, and that would totally happen. I'd be having kind of a rough day, get myself a really tasty coffee, and it's just a little better, right?
Yeah, it's just
that's a good point.
I feel like a cup of coffee is kind of like you give somebody a little bit of, be it safety or stability or just something familiar, because a lot of us have, like we talked about earlier, like coffee memories that go back to, oh man, I had that here with a friend, or, I used to drink coffee with my mom, or, you know what I mean? So it's like, it's that little bit of whatever it is that you're selling or preparing. And, sometimes it just seems trivial, but to some people that really makes a difference.
No, I agree with you. I think there is a level of comfort experienced for people like us who have these experiences.
Yeah.
Because some people don't like coffee.
Yeah.
Come on, start drinking
Yeah.
it. All right. All right. So in closing here, I want to hear about what are you working on? There's some big event coming up. You already mentioned it, but tell us a little bit more. And how can our listeners join in on the fun?
Yeah, so we have our biggest event of the year in WrestleMania coming up, and that's April 10th and 11th. It's the second time. It's been 2 days in a row. So it's Saturday, Sunday, April 10th and 11th. And we just moved our WWE network to Peacock, the Peacock network. So you can watch it all on there. And you can watch me. I'll be on night one. That's Saturday, April 10th. I don't have any coffee inspired gear or anything, but
yeah, but I think the listeners can at least cheer you on.
Yes, definitely.
With some hopefully a new coffee ring name.
Yes. Tweet me, Instagram me, and watch me on WrestleMania and send me those coffee nicknames. I always try to whenever I can bring a coffee out on TV. I have before, or like little things like that. I always do because I think it's funny, and I'm like, okay, if there's 10 people out there that appreciate it too, like if you spill coffee all over yourself or something like that, like,
yeah,
we've all been there.
Nice, cool. Well, I'll encourage the listeners to go check it out. Make sure they catch you,
please.
Seeing you do your thing out there. As a final question, I'll give you the choice. You can answer one of these questions. What is the best piece of advice you've ever received, or something that has really helped you to carry on in life, or what is the main takeaway from this conversation we just had that you want our listeners to have from the conversation?
So advice is always really hard to me because it always changes. Like I hear so many good like sayings or advice, and then I'm like, oh man, this is brilliant. And then I hear something else, I'm like, oh, that's brilliant too. But I can, I'll just like, so what I'm taking away from this conversation, and what I've been trying to work on is like just enjoy the little things in life, right? There's so many things that are out of our control, and I feel like when I went through times where I was unhappy, I focused on the stuff that was out of my control instead of what I could control, And then so that's what I'm trying to do now, just focus on the stuff that I can control and be happy. Kind of like the journey, is the main goal, I guess, kind of, and we just need to enjoy that. That's the biggest one, right? and the hardest one, because that's not the one that's not the one you want to hear when you're like during a difficult time. You're like, oh, it's the journey. You will enjoy it one day when you look back. You're like, no, I want this now. So.
I learned a thing or two in this episode about coffee people, and definitely learned a deeper appreciation for professional wrestling by getting to know Cesaro a bit. But remember, this episode is not over until you submit a coffee ring name for him and for me if you want to help my bucket list situation. So go ahead and submit your suggestions via email, Instagram, or Twitter, and I will host voting on Instagram or Twitter. Well, actually, I'll host it on both. Don't worry about the details. Hit me up with your suggestions. And anyway, that's all for this episode. Thanks for tuning in. And as always, and until next time, happy brewing.